I'm Alex de Campi. I write comic books and graphic novels. I've done work like Dracula Motherfucker with Erica Henderson. And then our next horror follow up to that is out in October from Image, which is called Parasocial. I collaborated with Duncan Jones on the graphic novel Maddie, the Eisner nominated Bad Girls, Archie versus Predator, which was quite fun, 1 and 2. And a bunch of other things. So I've written like dozens of books and directed a bunch of music videos and written some novels and some screenplays too. So yeah, I'm mostly known for graphic novels, but I'm a bit of a magpie.
How did this relationship at comic come about? Like, talk about its origins, its inception.
It's a pretty long story. I'll try and make it pretty succinct. I had an Australian Shepherd for 13 years. That's my shrine behind me to him. Eventually, he couldn't walk anymore. He had sores from a harness we had him. He became incontinent, and we had to make the call to put him down. And when the year of spontaneous crying stopped, my wife found a Pomsky, and then due to my Broadway endeavors, being a Broadway producer now, I was spending a lot of time in New York City, and I went up to the Game of Thrones final season premiere. Weird flex, but okay. And I was hanging out. And I looked around the city, and I just saw that, as I said in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. The pigeons, the rats, the stray cats and dogs and whatnot, right? And then we brought Lady back, and I just looked at her and thought, like, what about doing a badass dog superhero? Like, what happens when the kids who like Paw Patrol get a little bit older? And a friend of mine, John Nee, used to work for Marvel and Cryptozoic. He's knee deep in the comics world, which I had no idea how to infiltrate. And then he introduced me to Alex, and we hit the ground running. Honestly, I had worked in the IP as a video game initially, but then I was like, maybe a comic makes more sense, right?
The neat thing about a comic, even though it feels like it's taken forever, like, about 4 of us can make it happen. And a game requires more than that.
Oh yeah, I'm used to collaborating with like tons and tons of people, but Alex, to a lot of extent, reminds me of Rod Ferguson, who's my producer in the Gears of War franchise, and the fact that a creative who also knows how to get shit done. And she's been my Sherpa to the comics world, and it's been an utterly fascinating journey. And I'm really thrilled with the results. I think it's the story's going to resonate with a lot of people.
Reading through that first issue, the world like that you created there, not just the character, seems pretty grand and wild. I'm always curious, like, what comes first when you're approaching that story? Because it's not based on like an existing IP. So are you building characters first and designing the world around them? Is it vice versa?
I mean, Alex, do you want to speak to that, Alex? Or
I mean, Cliff had a really, really solid idea about both the characters and the world. So we were like, he brought it to me with a really strong foundation. But I think I'm very much a character writer rather than a world builder. So what really appealed to me was that he created these really, really interesting characters that I could do a lot of stuff with. And he had a really solid outline of where he wanted to go and what he wanted to happen. And we took it from there. And then he kind of brought me a foundation and some bones, and then I started sticking clay on the bones. I guess this metaphor is getting worse and worse.
Actually, that was pretty good.
What if we bring this in? What if we bring that in? And then sometimes I had to pull Cliff back a bit because the thing about video games is they can expand infinitely in all directions, limited only by budget and time. And comics are 20 to 24 pages an issue. We already thought, we'll do sort of like 4 or 5 issues. We ended up doing 6 because we couldn't fit all the story into 5. And occasionally he'd be like, well, what can we show this neat aspect of the story that I developed? And I'm like, sometimes it would be like, oh yeah, sure, we can fit that in. Or like, oh yeah, that really helps support this one story beat. But other times we're like, well, we're gonna have to leave that for a potential second miniseries because I just we can't fit, like, if the story kind of needs to breathe and pace. But that's a high class problem, is having too many good ideas.
Yeah, but I mean, as Michael Bay famously said, shoot for the edit. And some of the sometimes there's good stuff that winds up in the cutting room floor, like the gun turret sequence from Aliens. But that's the thing is, what we've done is we've surgically designed this IP to potentially be like a Netflix series, or, well, writer's strike aside and all that stuff, in a video game and a toy line. You know, using, you know, my experience for 25 years in video games, you know, Gears wound up with a toy line and a comic book series, and Alex's experience with, you know, comics directing and writing. I think this is kind of like the, you know, Voltron or Devastator of combination, and I'm really, really thrilled by it. I honestly have not been this excited since the first Gears. And that's the thing, it's like working with just a handful of people again. You know, that's, you know, that's how I got started in game development, with just a handful of people. And, you know, when I left Epic, they were up to like, you know, 70 or 80 people. They're at hundreds, if not thousands now, due to the, you know, Fortnite exploding. But, you know, that's the thing is, you know, if I have a handful of people to bounce ideas off of, that's where I'm in my happy place, and that's where I think the magic actually happens.
Alex, when you're writing, like you do a bunch of different writing for different mediums. Like when you're writing a comic, is your process different than like writing for other mediums, like you said, like novels or plays or stuff like that?
Yes, but it doesn't feel different. Like formatting is different. I'm still trying to get across, you know, an emotionally resonant, exciting story that has good pacing. The appeal for me for Scrapper isn't necessarily like that it can go in all these different directions into other media, is that like we could just make a really good comic out of it. Cliff's absolutely right, it can go other places, but my business was make the best comic possible, and I think we did that. I think when I'm writing for comics, I do try to do things that you can't do in any other media.
It's just it's been a fascinating art form to learn, because, you know, when, you know, I made the foundation of what the IP is, partner with Alex, and then learning how, you know, she literally has to, like, not only, you know, to further develop the characters, but also like frame it, you know. And actually that's where, you know, I think the music video directing comes in, you know, like, and, you know, the way you pace it, you know, going from page to page, and, you know, having reveals when you turn the comic page. These are all things I never thought about, and it's been a really fascinating business to learn.
I thought it was interesting earlier, Cliff, you mentioned that you've already thought of like Scrapper being ported over to other mediums, animation, games. Have you thought of like what kind of game it would be if you did make a Scrapper video game? Would it be like a hard narrative adventure? Have you had moments making the comic?
I'm imagining something like the Arkham Asylum games, the Batman games. I enjoyed it, but I found it a little bit snoozy. No offense, it was just a little bit slow, and I just, you know, I want a Don Bluth style watership down badass dog superhero that's PG-13 rated, you know. If we do a game, he's not going to die, he's going to get knocked out, you know, if you fail, you know, do the little like Looney Tunes, you know, birds around the head. He's not going to kill people, he's going to mess them up. You know, just, you know, imagine again Bat Dog, you know, but like, you know, Superman had crypto, but that's like, you know, 7-year-old stuff, you know. I want to make something for, you know, the 12-year-olds to the, you know, emotionally, you know, stunted adults.
This is a comic, but like you mentioned Don Bluth, like the dude's still kicking and doing stuff. Like, did you like mess around with maybe having this concept as an animated series or a feature or something like that before the comic, or was it always the comic first?
Always the comic first. I'm a big believer in walk before you run. But I signed with Grandview in LA, the agency, and they're currently poking around to see if there's any interest. Another intro, I believe, from Alex.
But yeah, I mean, this could definitely be something animated. I'd love it to, you know, especially the kind of like really interesting, high quality animations being done right now, like the Arcane series, which was fantastic.
The thing is, it has kind of like a slight retro style to it, you know. And that's the thing when you look at the current state of animation, you know, the animated Spider-Man movies, like this. There's this whole new style of like 3D that's made to look 2D, you know, messing with like the frame rate. You know, you look at the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and that style, it almost looks like stop motion and painted, you know, like, because I think people are kind of getting burnt out on the Pixar look. You know, the big eyes and all that stuff, and I love Pixar. I've loved them from day one. If you don't cry in the first 5 minutes of Up, then you're a sociopath. But I think that look is kind of wearing thin these days. And it worked for the Mario movie, which made like $1 billion, and I loved the Mario movie. Watched it twice so far. But I think it's time to go, you know, kind of go a little bit retro.
I know that you guys are gonna have a Scrapper panel at San Diego Comic-Con just coming up in about a week. I think, Alex, you're actually gonna be there. Kind of a two-part question. What's the prep like going into doing a panel at Comic-Con for your graphic novel? And also, Cliff, just what is it like to have your comic being featured at such an event?
I have done zero prep on it so far, other than organizing our moderator, who's Chris Arendt from Read Pop. And I'm gonna do it all next week. I mean, I've always felt very comfortable talking in front of crowds, and we can always, like, Cliff and I get on really well, and like Chris knows me really well, so like we can just ask each other questions if like nobody shows up and wants to hear from us, or nobody asks questions. So yeah, I just there isn't a lot of prep. I just kind of wing it. We did rush around last week making book plates and stickers when we realized that Image doesn't actually bring single issues to Comic-Con, because you have, like, single issue comics get beat up really easily. So if you bring them to Comic-Con and like lots of people handle them, then you might as well throw them away, because no one's going to buy this thing that's like got people's paws all over it. So it's like, oh no, we might not have anything to sign. They're frantically doing layouts on book plates and stickers and things that we can hand out. So that's the only prep we've done. After that, I kind of breathed a sigh of relief and didn't.
Yeah, if I'm not like hosting a Comic-Con panel, I just like to fucking wing it. Like, I mean, you know, I've done interviews for years, you know, as has Alex, and it's just, you know, if you're too rehearsed, it just comes across as stiff and not natural. And, you know, at the end of the day, be yourself. And, you know, like this IP comes from the heart. You know, Alex, you know, loves her dog. I love my dogs. And, you know, everybody loves, unless you've been bit by a dog, you know, most people love dogs. It's funny, you know, a couple restaurants in town, and you know, I'll make the rounds, you know, to check on things. I'm just going to look for dogs to pet, with consent, of course.
As someone who's gone to Comic-Con for 20 years, like, having comic books at Comic-Con seems like it should be a no-brainer, but like I've foreseen that it's great to see like comic books trying to come back to that convention, because there was a time there where it was just, what are comics? We got to focus on the new feature film that's coming out this year.
And then it's like the Big Bang Theory has this like huge setup over there, and like when I always fucking hated that show, because it's about laughing at the nerds, not laughing with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, Comic-Con morphed into being about pop culture, but at the end of the day, you know, it's comics that drove so many of these superhero movies in the first place, and I see comics as just a great launching pad for just creating new worlds and IP. This is something that I'm funding myself, and I believe in it. You know, I own the IP. You know, whatever it does, Alex gets a really solid chunk of it. But, you know, I'm really putting my heart into this, and I really believe in it. I think it really could go far.
Cliff, you tweeted out previously a cover of a Scrapper where he's like wielding the jetpack. He's like flying straight up, kind of towards the reader. How much jetpack action are we going to get in Scrapper? Is he going to do a lot of flying around?
That remains to be seen. I don't want to necessarily reveal that. Alex and I both tweeted that one, I believe, and it's a little bit of a spoiler, because he has this collar that's essentially kind of like some Acme level of shit, you know, like where, you know, crazy different things can come out of it, right? Because, you know, coming from the video game world and you're creating a hero, you know, it's always, what are the verbs? What can they do? Can they run? Can they jump? Can they shoot? Can they kick? And the one of the scenes that we weren't able to get into the books that hopefully will end up being in a future book or video game is, you know, the idea that his pee is incredible, so acidic that it can melt steel. And I had this image of him like lifting his leg on like a door lock and peeing on it, and then, you know, without dropping his leg, just kicking the door open. But we'll get around to that one, I hope. That's one of my favorite moments. But yeah, it's but Comic-Con means a lot to me. I first started going when I first started seeing my wife, and we had like a magical time. We wound up ultimately getting married at the San Diego Safari Park, and you know, yeah, it's packed, and just it's not 100% about the comics anymore. It's a celebration of pop culture, the pop arts. But to be at Comic-Con and to actually have like a comic launching is like full circle, it feels like, for me, because I had gone for, you know, the video game work that I'd done. Alex, you've done a million of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't go to them that much unless I really have something that's launching. Just because, you know, like dog boarding and travel, and like it all ends up being really expensive for me, which is why, since they're flying me out.
And then they jack
up the hotel prices. But this is going to be a really interesting year for it, because there's the writer's strike. It's looking like an actor's strike. So there's almost no big Hall H panels with lots of celebrities this year, because, you know, I think they're all too afraid that they'll have to cancel when none of the actors can show up because of the strike.
No, Cliff, I'm just curious. You've dabbled in so many different industries, and you continue to dabble in different industries. Like, what's that like? Just because none of these industries, like your restaurant business and video game business and comic business, like they're all business, but they're all completely different. Like, what's it like having like just such a variety of like job resume on your plate, business resume on your plate with all these different industries?
You'd be surprised at how much overlap there is, right? Like, and learning about Broadway, and like the thing about like Broadway, like you look at choreography, that's animation. You look at the outfits, that's concept art. You look at the lighting. I mean, the lighting in video games is huge, right? And lighting is incredibly important when it comes to the restaurant business too. You don't want to feel like you're being abducted by aliens, like fire in the sky kind of shit, right? And so I found that there's a surprising amount of overlap in the various industries. And at the end of the day, I told my Broadway producing partner, she's like, "You're getting pretty good at this." And I looked at her in the eyes, having a drink in New York, and I said, "You can't fake the goosebumps." And that's the thing is, the thing about Scrapper is that it has heart. And that's the thing is, I'll watch like any comic book movie these days, and if it doesn't have heart, if it doesn't have those moments, apart from the big CGI battles, you don't give a shit about the battles. You need to care about, Captain America's kind of fish out of water story. You need to care about Tony Stark being an alcoholic. You need to care about, Wonder Woman, coming out of, her native land, and again, another kind of fish out of water story, right? Like that's what really brings things home for people. And, I love, catching feels, I'm a big fan of the Jimmy Valvano speech from the ESPYs, where he says, if you could do 3 things in one day, laugh, think, and cry, do that 7 days a week, then you're living a good life. And I firmly believe in that phrase, and I'm going to get it tattooed on me soon.
That's one of the great things about what Cliff brings to any project, is he's not doing it just to do it. Like, there's a lot of comics that people are like just doing a high concept so they can go on and try to sell an option or something like that. And I'm including like regular comic writers in this, and sometimes they're actually the worst of it. Cliff only does things if he gets really passionate about them. He only backs a Broadway musical if he really believes in it. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to do something just because I do Broadway, or and I think like the thing about only doing projects you really, really believe in is, yeah, sure, you get hurt when like they fail because you believe in them and you don't understand why no one else does. And that happens. But like, if nothing else, like you enjoy it. And that's kind of really important, that you like that in the creative world. It's very easy to get sidetracked into doing things that you don't believe in and you don't enjoy just for a paycheck or for the prestige or whatever. And it's something I do with my own works. I am less productive than other comics people because I only do projects that I really feel passionately about, because making anything is hard. And so if you love it, like, you can more easily bear through the hard parts of the process. And there are always hard parts, and no creative process ever just goes perfectly.
What's the balance, Cliff, with the creative and the business end? Because I feel like it's if it tips too much in one way, it can be like catastrophic for the company, but too much on the other way, and it just becomes like an algorithmic business thing. Like, what's the balance between creativity and running the business side of it?
I never ever want to be CEO of anything ever again. When I had Boss Key and it cratered as my dog was dying, the internet thought it was fucking hilarious, and it basically broke me for a year. But basically, I try and keep the biz stuff light, but I do like management of everything that I work on. I don't really have an assistant. My wife is my tech support, because I'm a bit of a Luddite. But yeah, there's a reason why my memoir, free plug, is called Control Freak, because I just, I think that's one of the reasons Alex and I vibe, because both her and I believe, are control freaks. And we managed to find that balance between being, creatives, but also the ability to get shit done, because half of success in life is just showing the fuck up. There's a book that I read recently.
It's not control freak in the like my way or the highway aspect of it. It's like, let's make sure all these details are correct. Let's make sure we actually really get down to the nitty gritty on this, and like, is that balloon correct? Is that sound effect correct?
But that torque point we have of bouncing off each other, I think vibes really, really well,
Because if he doesn't catch something, I will, and if I don't catch it, he does. So, you know, because sometimes when you're spread across a bunch of projects, you're looking over pages or something like that, and like, you know, your brain's just not quite there, or you skip something or whatever, and one of us always gets it. Sometimes both of us do.
It's important as a creative to have multiple plates spinning, but not too many plates. You know, my wife's working on like a book and a comic book right now, and I tell her, hun, it's better to have, you know, 2 or 3 things that are at 90% than, you know, 10 that are at 10%. Right. So, you know, it's good to focus and, you know, get shit done. And that's why, you know, we're here today.
Alex, you mentioned up top you have a very deep resume in writing beyond comics. You said you've done screenplays and just about everything. I'm curious, how does Scrapper compare to things you've already done?
I don't like to do the same thing over and over again. I'm not like Ed Brubaker, who just does like noir thrillers like with one guy for his whole career. I love him. Like, Ed's great at it. Like, he's super good. This isn't to do Ed down, but like, I can't just be like, I'm going to write in this story in this niche, versions of this story for the rest of my life. The other books I have coming out around Scrapper, you know, one's a horror story, like a psychological thriller. The other one's, you know, a black comedy action adventure called Bad Karma.
Parasocial
Scrapper.
Really,
I think the fun
really good.
Yeah, oh, thank you. The fun thing about Scrapper for me is I don't do comic book issues very often. I tend to just go away and do graphic novels. So writing in this format of, you know, there's a fight scene every issue, there's something that makes you want to pick up the next issue on the final page. It's kind of a wonderful, it's neat getting back to that. Where Scrapper is the same as my other work is again, I write characters and I write heart. And whether that's in Bad Karma or Parasocial or Scrapper, that's what I bring to it. Like, they're going to be characters that are not perfect, that you feel you want to follow and you relate to, and you feel bad when bad things happen to them, and you're there with their journey.
Yeah, the hero's journey.
You know, we live in a world now where you can get like instant feedback on stuff, like the back in the day, or Alex, when you were writing comics, like you kind of just had to do it internally and then it was released, you know, maybe you have Q&A or whatever, but like, what's it like developing like a comic today where you can get feedback from a lot more people, whether it's publicly online or privately online, like just get more like on the art, on the writing, on the color?
I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, like they say don't read the comments, you know, but sometimes the comments are right. And so you got to just know, like, when, you know, you get like a bad peanut, you know, of a person who's just trolling just to troll. And I'm about to find out, you know, that as I found out that Broadway fans can be very snooty, we're about to find out if comic fans are the same as video game fans and restaurant fans. But, you know, fandom is a beautiful thing until it's not. And that's the thing, is when you pour your heart into something. That's the thing about the Gears franchise, you know, like, people are like, it's just a dude bro shooter. And then I go to YouTube sometimes, you know, after I have a mimosa, and I'll read, you know, the comments on like some of the key scenes from the Gears franchise, and, you know, the ending, you know, Dom having to kill Maria, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, people, you know, were moved to tears. And that's the thing, is, you know, going back to the Jimmy V quote, you just, as a creative, you just want to make sure you've affected people. Right. And I'm sorry, this is a rant, Alex. I think you've heard me give this one. There's a scene from Doctor Who where Matt and Karen bring Van Gogh to the Musée d'Orsay and show him that his work had an impact on people. And they ask the museum curator, Bill Nye, not the science guy, the British actor, you know, what, you know, Van Gogh meant. And he's saying he was possibly the greatest of all time, if not a great man. And the actor, who looks just like him, just goes for it and just cries. And I cry every time I watch that scene, because yeah, money's nice, but at the end of the day, you just want to know that you had an impact on people. And to create IP where people actually get their fucking bodies tattooed with is the ultimate fucking form of flattery, to know that you affected them.
We actually take, in the development process, we actually take very little advantage of like the internet and being able to get lots of reactions from people. You kind of have to, like, Cliff and I have been doing this long enough that we sort of trust ourselves. And, you know, obviously we show friends and like loved ones and stuff like that, but that's usually like offline. You know, what we're working on, I bounce things off my daughter because she loves, like she's just like, it's just good to hear her perspective. She's 12. She has lots of opinions. But you know, if you really like pour your heart into something and you love it and you make something you love, like it kind of doesn't matter what the internet thinks of it. I mean, it's nice if they like it, but I've never written a single book to like have with the explicit goal of like having it be popular or, you know, seen as good. I just write the best story I can. I do something that I feel really passionately about, and then if nobody likes it, hey, I liked it.
I think that's really tough, especially in 2023, because there are so many people who do really good work, are really talented artists or writers, musicians or game developers, but like they're not chasing, you know, the battle royale formula. They're not chasing this trend, or they're not catering to this age group. And so like their work just gets buried and forgotten in the plethora of content that's just as overwhelming in 2023. But speaking to that, like Scrapper is an original IP. So like when you're working with your own IP, you know, other than like Gears or like Archie or stuff like that, like what does that open up for you guys creatively, or even on the business end of it? Like what does that do for you? Do you have to work with your own IP?
I've always worked on new IP. Like the only IP that I ever considered working on when I had my game studio was Aliens, because that's one that just is legendary.
Because Aliens.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it just I love the possibility of creating a new world. I love typing up a description of a character and getting an image on my phone as I'm at a restaurant with the missus and showing it to her, feeling like a giddy kid. You know, just the act of willing things into existence is what gets me out of bed, usually around noon. But yeah.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. Like I've never, you know, like I've never had an issue getting my stuff out there, because I think if you're true enough to yourself and weird enough, like your stuff finds an audience.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, your communities.
I mean, look at Tim Burton. Tim Burton did all sorts of crazy, weird shit before it was cool, right?
Yeah, he did. He really did.
And that's the thing is, you know, the book, Hitmakers. You know, I like to talk in interviews about Mandalorian, because Mandalorian was, you know, smash, because it was basically a sci-fi western. You know, same thing why, you know, Firefly and Serenity to this day still have a huge cult following, right? And that's the thing. It's like, if you look at what we're doing, it's Bat Dog in a good way. You know, it's like the Christopher Nolan version of a Bat superhero, right? But by way of the art style of Don Bluth. So that just kind of went 16 ways, but. I'm sorry, I'm a pop culture junkie.
I think my last question for both of you: what is just the single thing you want readers to walk away with after reading Scrapper? It's a very emotional story, so I'm curious just what you hope people walk away from, if anything, when they read it.
Alex, you want to go?
And I want them to go hug their dog or their cat.
I'm thinking the same fucking thing.
Whatever they've got. You know?
Hey, don't speak of cats. Shh, spoiler. Well, that's the thing is, you know, there's this social media follower guy that I follow named Rex Chapman, and he always posts dogs. We don't deserve them. And that's the thing is, you know, like, you know, Louis C.K. says dogs, if you get a dog, it's a countdown to heartache. So, you know, I want people to love and respect their pets and get them spayed and neutered, to quote Bob Barker. But yeah, you know, I just want them to sniff their paws, rub their bellies, and let them give them kisses, and, you know, see, you know, Scrapper's kind of arc about how he can be, you know, you first, you know, see him as a puppy, you know, scared and lonely, and then eventually becoming the badass, you know, hero of the city. The entire story is just, you know, kind of a statement on fascism and gentrification and you know, robot overlords and things like that. But I really, in my heart of hearts, think it really is going to resonate with a lot of people.
If nothing else, there's a pigeon that says, "Senpai, notice me." The pigeons are like fanboys, and I love them because they're fanboys with like ADHD who like can't, or executive dysfunction who can't like hold a thought between starting a sentence and ending it. So they'll be like, "Ooh, Senpai, notice me." Ooh, French fry. So writing some of the other urban animals has been an absolute blast. The rats who mostly speak in like sweary emojis.
So I want to just want the last thing I want to ask is like the ravioli. Like, was that something that your German Shepherd loved, Cliff, or was that something that was just it'd be fun to write in the dog
first,
ravioli?
it was an Australian Shepherd.
Sorry,
which is fine. But second, that was Alex's idea. She's like, it has to be ravioli. I'm like, oddly specific.
Yeah, I just I wanted to have like. He's called Scrapper because he's a stray dog and he got fed scraps behind a restaurant before the family that runs the restaurant adopts him. Like I decided that their special dish would be ravioli. And that's what Scrapper got like side orders of. No tomato sauce because tomato's bad for dogs, but like just the plain ravioli. It just, sometimes like universality doesn't come via making things vague, like just giving him a bowl of food. Universality comes from like amusingly specific stuff. Like they feed him this one thing from the restaurant that's safe for him that he really likes, and that's his like kind of like magic food.
Like Peter Quill's mixtape, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
It's the little things, right? And it's the same thing that goes back to IP creation, right? Like you look at Mad Max Fury Road, and I remember talking to people who are like, that movie was great except for the guy with the flamethrower guitar. I'm like, he was the best fucking part. You're fucking crazy,
They never seen a Mad Max movie like before that one.
Yeah.
Who runs Bartertown? Like come on. So my last thing is, where can people find this comic? When does it come out? Where can people buy it? Your website? Can they go to the local comic book store? Like talk about where they can find
local comic book stores, July 19th. And Alex has been plugging like the international stuff on social. Alex, thoughts?
I got it here. Oh, Zoom, why are you doing this to me? Yeah, I've made a little website, a link tree basically, that links to not only where you can buy the book in the UK, the US, Ireland, and Canada via mail order. It's like you can either just go to your local comic shop on like next Wednesday and pick it up from Image Comics, and then put it on your pull list so you're sure they'll order all 6 issues for you. Or you can get it via mail order via any of the things on our like little Scrapper website that I pulled together. The Scrapper website also has links to the 2 store exclusive variant covers. So if you're super into variant covers, we've got 3 normal, like just standard variants for the first issue, and then 2 more that are only available from certain stores. But I list those stores, and you can either email them or if you're local, pop into them.
And there's a mega crossover cover coming soon from us and a major IP, like a major one. So I'm so excited about it. Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled.
For issue 4, which is going to be a lot of fun. And you can get the book digitally, like you can get it on Comixology starting on July 19th, and I'll update the little mini site we have with a direct link to that. So if you're like, I like the book, I want to try it out, I don't want to go to a comic store, I don't want to buy the thing, I don't want to wait, I just want to read it online.
But then he can't sniff it.
Scratch and sniff.
Exactly.
All
Thanks,
right,
guys.
And then there is a really nice hardback collected edition coming out in March, which you'll be able to buy at like bookstores or Amazon or wherever.